And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Wednesday morning's flying weather graphic here showing marginal VFR extending down from the Arctic right on down into the central interior across the Alaska range here and into the Talkeetna Mountains, and to the east VFR, to the west VFR, and then farther to the west we've got more marginal VFR pushing into the southwest coast, extending back up towards St. Lawrence Island, covering just about all of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, up to Kodiak Island VFR, and then more marginal VFR here for the Gulf of Alaska in across all of the southeast coast. And for the afternoon, this area of marginal VFR kind of pulls back to the west here, as you can see, moving into Whittier, Portage area and covering just about all the Kenai Peninsula and still over the southeast coast. The interior here, pretty good VFR, extends right on up into the Noatak Valley there and the northwest coast, but marginal VFR here on down into the northern Yukon Flats and the Koyukuk Valley, all the way back out to the coast. And out over the Bering Sea, not a lot of change out here. Some VFR over the far western Aleutians, maybe on Alaska Island, Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, marginal VFR now pulling back to the coastline from actually the Bering Strait on down and into Bristol Bay. For the morning hours Thursday, next system here pulling across the Bering Sea pushes a band of IFR into the Pribilof Islands and then down south across the eastern Aleutians, becoming marginal VFR for Atka and Adak, and then VFR from about Kiska Island to Shimia. Marginal VFR here, western Copper River Basin, down into the Manuska, Susitna Valley, northern Cook Inlet, and IFR along and just off the North Gulf Coast there. Looks like it'll stay south of Prince William Sound. Marginal VFR for the southeast coast. And for the afternoon, IFR is gone here over the northern Gulf of Alaska, leaving marginal VFR behind. Again, northern Cook Inlet and on up into the Manuska, Susitna Valley, across the Brooks Range there, right into the central Tanana Valley or so, and then marginal VFR here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, still marginal for the Panhandle. And from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast and beyond, marginal VFR there. And this system edging its, or the system coming eastward here, pushing the IFR up and close toward the southwest coast in the afternoon, maybe reaching Cape Newenham, definitely Nunivak Island, the Pribilof. That'll extend down to the eastern Aleutians and up along the Alaska Peninsula. And for the Brooks Range passes, starting off as usual with Adigan, or Anatuvik, marginal VFR. Adigan, same forecast, marginal VFR throughout the day Wednesday. Lake Clark and Merrill and all the Alaska Range looking pretty good. VFR for all the passes, rainy, windy. Isabel VFR, Mentasta VFR, and even down toward Tanita, VFR there. And for Portage, VFR, and then becoming marginal VFR, expecting some moisture to come in from the east and southeast during the day. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet here, cutting across the north central Bering Sea down into Bristol Bay, southeast of Kodiak Island, and then back up right along the North Gulf Coast in the northern Panhandle, 4,000 feet all the way down toward the Queen Charlotte Islands. Out to the west here, got a 4,000 to 8,000 feet over the southern Bering Sea and the west central Aleutians. And icing with a system coming into the Bering Sea here, an area of isolated moderate rime icing that could extend down to the central Aleutians, but mostly staying out in this area here, and possibly some icing occurring up over the north central interior here, and then a little bit better chance of icing for the North Gulf Coast and the southeast coast. Again, isolated moderate rime or mixed icing in those areas. Moving on to the 33,000 foot wind flow chart here. Jet stream well south of mainland Alaska and the Panhandle, so that keeps any heavy weather down in that area. So pretty light winds over the interior and 160 knots, so a good jet area coming across the southern Bering Sea out of the west, 175, and it takes a turn to the southeast here, right across the eastern Aleutians. And for the 9,000 foot wind flow, we're looking at light winds, really not too bad. Southwest 20 knots over the Cape Newenham area, but picking up to about 30 knots for Kodiak Island. and then light winds here with a trough over the interior, and light southwest flow for the panhandle, and then of course stronger winds with that stronger system that's developing as it moves east-southeastward here, up to 50 knots there over the western Aleutians. And at 3,000 feet, 40-knot winds here just along and north of the western Aleutians there, with the system eventually will be tracking southeastward. And higher pressure light winds, Alaska Peninsula, pretty light winds over the eastern Bering Sea, interior Alaska, from the Arctic Ocean down into the Gulf, light winds for the southeast coast. And as a result for turbulence, nothing of any significance over mainland Alaska or the southeast coast, and maybe some moderate turbulence coming in with the increasing winds. That's going to be way out towards Shimia and Attu.